Hey everyone, in this video we're going to take a look at the prototype Bitspower blocks for the MSI series cards. This will fit the Supreme, Trio, and possibly the Vanguard, even though technically all three cards share very similar PCB design. I don't see why it wouldn't fit the Vanguard, but I was told that it's a maybe. I don't understand why. But for those of you that didn't watch the last video where I covered the Astral and the Tough, this block is a little bit further down the line. We'll just pull in the Tough for comparison. So previously I'd done a video on the Astral and the Tough prototype blocks. I'm going to be making that I'm going to re-upload that in one huge video, which is 1 hour, rather than a 3-part upload that I did originally, just so it's easier to find. But anyways, you can see that on this Tough variant, ignore the saran wrap. I just put pads on it and I didn't want it to dry out, so before I get to it, I just covered saran wrap real quick. But you can see that right away, the cover, there was a little bit, they're leaving a little more, a little bit more of just cutting a little bit more around the side so that it fits smoother, which they've done. You can see that on the MSI one, it removes much easier. But you also notice things like it's actually thicker now, all right, the cover. It's thicker than the original versions, okay? So additionally, you'll see that there's the inlay groove here, which I think is a better touch than a flat like we had here. But you can also see that there are design changes. So where the screws are on the front here, it's now coming from the back. It's obviously more of an aesthetic pleasing choice. So very much like I said in the other video, these are prototypes while they're being iterated on extremely quickly because everybody's waiting for these and everybody wants blocks. So they are rushing to get them to the market. But in that time, they're also trying different things. Some people did say from the previous video they didn't like the covers. I'm not too sure why. I think it's a nice choice. Some people did say that they hope they sell the covers separately, which I also agree. But yes, just to be clear, these are prototypes, so these covers are not final in terms of look or in terms of finish. This is not finished. This is raw aluminum. Okay, so obviously on the finished one, it's going to be anodized. It's not going to be this unpolished thing. Okay, same goes for the back plate. So you can see here, this is the block itself. It shares a similar design, but for some reason, you can see that the core actually moved a little bit. So we don't see the core screws either, like we do here on this one, right? So that's also an improved look. And then we'll come around the back here, and you can see the back plate. I'm not sure why this is indented. I don't believe that would be final because that would look extremely weird. But I'm just going to start removing these. Oh, and these fittings we have here, those are just random fittings I put on to make sure the block didn't leak. It has nothing to do with Bitspower. Okay, so I'm just going to start removing the M2.5s, and we can take a look at the back. Okay. So you're going to use a stock retention bracket, just like we did on the Tough and the Astral. So for those of you curious, I have tested the Trio on air on the stock cooler. This is a new Trio I have over here, but I have tested it before on another Trio. The Trio does run a little bit about 8 degrees warmer than the Tough. 8 to 10 degrees. You'll see that when I show you guys the stock air cooler performance. Even with the same fan percentage, so running 55 to 60% fan, you will get higher temps by about 8 to 10 degrees on the Trio. I don't know why. I looked on other reviews. I didn't really see that, like from Tech Power Up or something, or like just across review sites. But in my personal experience with the relatively the same ambient of only about, when I tested the Tough and the Astral, I had an ambient of about 20, 21, and I'm testing the Trio with an ambient of 21.5, so my ambient hasn't changed all that much, but like I said, it is running 8 to 10 degrees hotter on the stock. The memory is about the same. Okay, so right away, I remember last time when I talked about this, I had said that there was a bulge from the retention bracket, and I said they can either add a washer or do this. So you can see that they've actually pocketed a room so the retention bracket no longer bumps up. Also, like I was saying last time, we're not going to have these final 4 holes on the final versions. And here's something like that as an example. I'm sorry for the light above. It's making it kind of brighter than it really is. So the pads are going to be pre-applied. You can see we still have the core here. This core is going to be the same as the core in the others, but this is also, once again, not nickel plated yet. The final ones will be nickel plated, I believe. So with that said, you've seen the block, you've seen the slight differences from the last prototype. Let's just start taking apart the Trio. Okay, so move on to the disassembly of the MSI Trio. Looking at the pictures online, I think the Trio, Supreme, Vanguard all pretty much disassemble the same. So, I mean, I've never taken one apart, but it should be pretty self-explanatory, so let's get started. Right away, I can tell you, like I always like to make some commentary, this shroud is plastic. Just like the Tough was, which was very upsetting. But yes, on the Supreme, you will have a metal kind of cover in this area. This spot is metal, and then the rest is also just plastic. So you're not going to get that super premium build either, which is also disappointing because right now, in terms of pricing, the Supreme actually costs more than the Astral, which is pretty shocking, given everything that goes into it. So, with that said, let's move on. Okay, so the top screw is going into the cover. Let's see, I think there's one more over here. So let's just get rid of this screw. Sorry guys, I'm doing this. You have a much better view of it than I do, so if the movements are a little awkward, I apologize. Okay, so let's just start with the back plate. Alright, so let's just start removing these. So we'll remove each corner. There is an RGB light on the back, so I'm assuming there's a wire that's going to run across. Now, once again, disassembling this will not void your warranty. Okay. I think the only people that really care are maybe Zotac and PNY. I don't think anybody else cares if you disassemble your card. As long as you don't break anything. So the thing is, they like to put these stickers now. They're not warranty stickers. They're seals. The seals, if you stick a screwdriver into it or it's removed, they can tell that you've possibly opened it. Okay. Why that matters is really just the fact that they want to know if you did try to open it or you did open it. Now, that can be used in a good or a positive way, depending on application, but that is what it's for. Not that if the sticker's voided, you void your warranty. So you can see the back plate's already coming off. There's one more screw. I thought this was just for the I/O bracket, but it does go through. So let's pull that off. So far, so good. All right, so the back plate's okay, and the I/O bracket came off at the same time. So you see, you will find two pads on the back, one for the center, one for the 16 pin. That's a nice touch, although not the most padded I've seen, but nonetheless, let's keep going. So right away, you can see that there is a row of 3 wires here, right? So fan, most likely RGB. At least this red one might be the RGB. So you know what? We're gonna have to put this back on. So let's just hang on to this in the meantime. Yeah, let's just do this first. We'll start removing these because I can see that it's assembled. Well, the plastic cover is coming off already. I guess that was just the 6 screws, but it has the fans, so let's not do that. This one's gone. This one's attached to the heatsink. I think this one was 2. You can see it from the top, and then we have the bottom one here. And we have this one here. Now these screws all appear to be the same, so there's no need to really remember where they were. So I'm just going to put those in there. And then there's these 2 over here. I think these are all the same. All right, and now we're ready for the main one. So we'll just take this off. This I like to do each corner a little bit and go around because these usually are spring loaded, so I don't want to have it just pop up. So I'll loosen them slowly. Okay, so there's no capture, so don't lose these. On some of them, for the retention bracket, there is a clip, so it holds the screw. Obviously not for these, so let's just make sure we don't lose these. Put these in here. These screws are different than the rest, so, but you can tell because they have the little area where there's no thread. Okay, so let's just remove this. This bracket, retention bracket, does look the same though as like the other AIBs. All right, so now here comes the process of separating slowly. Just make sure I don't have any more screws. Okay, so you can see the front where those two screws are going through, right? And we should be able to separate the PCB without much of an issue. Once again, I'm behind it quite a bit, so it's a little harder for me to see. Okay, I think it's just pads. All right. I'm gonna have to get a better look at this. Loosen. You know what? I can't even remove the shroud because it's got the wires. You know, I think I got it. There we go. Let me lay it back down. Okay. So we have to be careful of the cables. Oh, there's 5. All right. So these 3 are most likely fan, and these would be lighting most likely. All right. So let's just. Interesting. You notice that it has the same type of pad implementation as I saw on the Asus cards. Well, they're color coded, so that's nice. Slowly. A little bit of wiggle. These are not color coded. So, since this is not color coded, even though I have it on video, I'm going to take a photo for my reference. So I remember later. Okay. So, always do these slowly. You see this plastic, the cover, it's already moving just from me wiggling it. I hate it when that happens, so I'm just going to hold on to it while I wiggle it. So yeah, sometimes these things just pop right off. You can put them back on, just, you don't want to see it wiggles. It's not in super tight, so. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, so I'm going to have to transfer 2 pads back. All right. And we can see the cooler. What is that? 1, 2, 3. About 3 heat pipes running here. Some at the top. Is this going to separate on me? Yeah, so we can see here. So you can see the heat pipe layout. All right. Oh, this is going to completely come off. This is the fans. That's all right. Since we have it apart, might as well take a look at it. So this is the heatsink. Okay. So let's see. Is this a vapor chamber design? Looks like it. All right. So let's put this. Yeah, that's the thing. I really don't know what's the difference between this and the Vanguard. But yeah. Anyway. Aside from minor PCB differences, so I'm back now. I moved the pads. I cleaned up the paste a little bit. There's still some on there. It's very caked on. But the one thing that surprised me is that this is a 22 phase. So aside from some slight componentry decisions over here for these, this is the same as the Supreme. So from a power delivery perspective, it is identical to the Supreme. So I don't know what the Vanguard brings. It doesn't even make sense. On the 80s, they did a cut down kind of thing, but it seems like on the 90, when I put up a photo of the Supreme PCB in Exodus, you see that doesn't seem to be much of a sacrifice. Okay, so with that said, let's move on. We'll just move on to the block now. So let's see if we can get this figured out. I do not have instructions, so we're going to figure it out as we go. First, I'm just going to remove all this. So I'm about to mate the card to the block. One thing I did notice right away is that there's nowhere for the original bracket to screw into for the block. So this originally went on like so, and then the screws would go through onto the cooler. Since it didn't come with anything for that, I'm just going to use, I think, a small screw and a nut, like an M2, just to hold it in place. And I'll bring that up to them to make sure that they do provide something in the box. So right away, let me just put that on first, because it's going to be hard to put on afterwards. So I put some M2 screws here with the nut, so it holds the bracket in place. Ideally, it fits M2.5, which is what Bitspower uses anyway. So that's an easy fix for them, just to include two screws with some nuts. And then we'll just try to mate this. I did try to mate it earlier a little bit, like I was saying off camera, just to make sure. But let's just come here and see how it goes. All right, so right away, having done the other two prototypes, this looks like it does fit a lot flusher right out. Let me see here. So far, I don't see anything touching that's not supposed to be touching. That's good news. And it lays fairly flat. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'm gonna start tightening it down now. So I have to do this off screen because the I/O is in the bracket. It's in the way. So first, let me just put on a retention bracket. So because this is a prototype, things like this do happen. This stock retention bracket for the MSI uses screws with the spaced area like I showed you guys earlier. So the posts on the stock cooler stick out more. So when you put that bracket on, you can use that kind of a screw because it's not fully threaded. Because the Waterblock does not have that same situation in terms of how much the threads come out, right? You can't use those stock screws. I don't think they know that because they don't have a trio to test with. So what I've done here is I've used the retention bracket from the 5090 Tough. Luckily, the threading is the same for the Waterblock, right? So that's not an issue. So I think they just went off the other ones and thought they were all the same, but apparently they're not, right? So, but that should be an easy fix. I think if they just put some screws, the right threading with the pad with some type of spring mechanism as well, that would easily solve that. So let's put this on. So far it looks good. Let me just take a look at it again, make sure nothing's touching. I can tell right away contact is definitely very good without having to take the whole thing apart. But everything's as it should be. So let's go on with the back plate. So slight hiccup. Luckily, I did have another 5090, right? Obviously, that's something I'm going to make sure they're aware of. So by the time you guys buy it, you're not going to have these kind of problems. So let's just put this on. So I'm going to screw this on. I might skip through all this because I don't think you guys want to see me put on like 10 screws. So here we are. The block has been installed. As you can see that there's no bowing on the back plate now because of that pocketing operation they've done for the retention bracket. But yes, so here we go. The block is fully installed. It's quite hefty. I'm going to put it in now. We're going to test it the same way we did with the Astro and the Tough, where we'll take a look at the temperatures in game and real quick, and we'll take a look at it running Fernmark. One thing I want to state that this is also a 600 watt. It's 104%, makes it 600 watt TDP. So it will pull the same as the Astro and the Tough. From what I've noticed last time using GPU-Z was that versus GPU Tweak, because the Astro has all the additional sensors, that the memory temp reading was not accurate, at least for the Asus cards. So I'm not sure how accurate it is for MSI, but at least for the Astro, it was not accurate. So with that said, let's get this in the system and we'll take a look. So you'll see here that it's been a little over 10 minutes, and you'll see the GPU temperature has been hovering at around 75 and stabilizing. Initially, this is on the gaming BIOS, so the fans are a little more aggressive. Initially, they were kind of in the 30s, but then eventually did hover in the high 50s, and you can see the temperature is 76, 75. In comparison to the Tough that we looked at earlier, and the Astral, this is about 10 degrees warmer. And on the memory, it's very similar. Granted, this is Fernmark, but you can see that there is around I would say 8 to 10, because it's a little warmer right now. About 8 to 10 degree difference on the cooler. So that's pretty astounding. So with that said, let's block it and see what difference we can make. So here you can see there is a slight difference in blocking versus not blocking. We're having a 15-degree difference at 600 watts versus the 10 that we saw in the Tough and the Astral. You also, as you can see here, I'm running in game. It's obviously going to be running cooler. And this trio is actually pretty good from a silicone standpoint. Looking at the clock, I can probably maintain around 3200 if I kept it a little cooler. But with that said, it really depends on the air cooler. Some are going to be more worth water cooling than the others. But with that said, thanks for watching. Stay safe and take care.